A lot of people know her columns that she writes in the newspaper and a lot of presentations that she gives out and about in the community. So we thought it would be a fun presentation to have her talk about river otters and other critters in our watershed that are seemingly making a comeback.
Going gangbusters. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Hi, everybody. You can see from the title, if you're of a certain age, you know where this is going to go.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that set.
I'd sing the whole song, but that's not what you're here for, and believe me, I don't want to clear the room just yet. So, river otters, can you believe we're talking about them in the present tense? Like, this is a real thing? I know you all have various and assorted backgrounds in your relationships with our local ecology, but I think we all share the Fox River as the thing that we hold nearest and dearest to our heart. When I entered into this field, it was in the late 1990s. I actually volunteered. Some of you remember the old Arlene Shoemaker Nature Center with the Tekawitha Woods. Sometimes people would come in to the Nature Center and they'd be all excited. I just saw an otter. Don't know her, and it swam away. And boy, you hate to burst a bubble when someone's so enthused about seeing something in nature, but it just wasn't a thing back then. 25 years ago, they were. Everybody knew what otters were, but they just weren't considered in the realm of possibility in this area. Well, what we're going to see today is that it's not only possible, but it's actually probable that you can encounter an otter somewhere here in our lovely Fox River watershed. Keep that photo in mind because it's going to come back again later. So, what's our history with otters here in Illinois? Back around the time of European settlement, they were pretty common throughout all of our waterways. This is an aquatic mammal. It doesn't breathe through gills. It's certainly capable of coming out of the water, but their life cycle is strongly associated with water. So wherever there were rivers or streams, there were river otters. Now, you add humans to an idyllic mix like that, and what do you get? You get overhunting, and you get habitat destruction. For these guys, the destruction came in two forms. One was the channelization of a lot of those meandering streams, and two was the pollution that then followed as more and more people came to the area. Talk about overhunting. So I have this piece. I was just talking about otters with the group yesterday, and I brought, this is an otter tail. It's easy to see why the otter fur was so popular. This is, I started here, and if you're afraid to touch it, let me know. And it just the group I was with yesterday looked like you didn't want to touch it, so it didn't get passed around. But it is thick and luxurious. It's water resistant. It's warm. Today, I think a lot of people regard mink coats as what was once the standard for a fur coat, but otter was really where it was at. It was easy to understand how everybody wanted them. They carried a pretty good price, so without, in the absence of the conservation laws that we have today, back then, there weren't many limits. That was take as many as you can get your hands on. And so we did start to run out. It wasn't though until 1977 that the otters in Illinois were determined to be of a threatened status, and it got worse from there. By 1989, statewide monitoring of river otters determined that there were less than 100 throughout the state. So that then triggered some more rulings, and the State Endangered Species Board put them at state endangered. So about 5 years later, I and got to work. Between the years of 94 and 97, they worked with counterparts down in Louisiana, and they brought 346 otters up to Illinois. And they spread them out. They started in the Wabash and the Kaskaskia and the Illinois River is where these releases were done during that time period. The nearest release site to where we are today was about 150 miles away. So they weren't in this area, but these were areas where the water was clean, and when you've got good water, you're going to have healthy and diverse fish populations, which is the bulk of these animals' diet. So they just put them out there. It was kind of interesting. So this happened in the mid-90s. In the early, to say mid, let's say 2000 to 2010, there was another reintroduction. Does anybody remember the barn owl reintroduction? Yeah. Same strategy of bringing animals from the south. They actually brought young barn owls up here, and they thought, well, if they fledged in Illinois, maybe they would call Illinois their home. And one went to Pennsylvania, one went to South Dakota. Some of them died. A few of them flew back down south again. Didn't work at all. But this was successful almost from the get-go. 10 years later, they weren't just upgraded to threaten, they were removed from the teeming list. 10 years after that, 2014, the statewide population was estimated to be at 30,000. And last year, they're thinking now over 50,000. The numbers are to the point now where hunting and trapping has been reinstated. There is a limit, 5 per season. But it's a sign. Actually, bobcats, you can hunt bobcats again in Illinois too. I'm gonna try real hard to stay on topic, but I just get so excited about these things. But in the western part of Illinois, there's now a bobcat season. Interestingly enough, there's a group of bobcat lovers that will apply for and oftentimes receive bobcat hunting permits that they just sit on to protect bobcats. And I haven't heard of an effort like that yet for otters, but yeah, they are back and considered one of our state's fur bearers that can be trapped. Season starts, I think, next week, middle of November. So here we've got these different release sites throughout the state, and because these are predators, and they do move around, they can't all stay in one spot, because they'll deplete their resources. So some of them started heading up the Illinois River. We also saw some recruitment from nearby states that had other populations coming in off of the Mississippi River. But look where those arrows are leading, to northeastern Illinois. This is, some of you might recognize it, is the Nippersink Creek. That was that site of that wonderful remeandering project. I should go back 15 or 20 years ago now. I had friends. Anybody here from McKinney County? All right. Remember Mary Cozen? Did you work with Mary?
Of course.
Yeah. So Mary, bless her, she when she switched her responsibilities at the district to outreach, she was stationed up there at Glacial Park, and she would step outside from time to time, go sit down next to the creek, and just kind of ponder life. And what did she see? This is probably, I'm gonna say this was around 2012, and she called me up. You're not gonna believe what I saw. Not a muskrat, not a beaver, not a mink, bona fide otters. Well, it took a while. You might know Cindy Jablonski then too. Took a while to document their presence, but this was in last year, 2021. Look at them all. It's like an otter frenzy there at Glacial Park. So. Things are looking up. Remember this picture? So this is actually the Fox River just north of the bike bridge by Tecumseh Woods. And this photo dates to, let's say it's 2018. Some of you might know Corey Begup who's an itinerant naturalist and restoration specialist. He was working on this yard here along the Fox River, and Corey was out, just looking at the river, and he sees something right there on the bank. And it's a playful thing. It's going up and down, it's going in and out of the tree roots from the spread of the roots of the silver maple that's there on the side. Well, he sent me this picture. He says, "You're not gonna believe me, but it's an otter." And I did believe him, because Corey knows his stuff. I tried to blow it up for you. That's what I got. But if we did this, you can kind of see the similarities. There was an otter, he stayed for about a week's time. This was in January of 2018. So that same winter, I told you through this story twice, I was just telling you about this. Same winter, a month later, we finally got some snow, some cold temperatures. There were ice shelves that had formed. There was a gentleman that was walking at Primrose Farm, which is our Park District property up off of Crane Road. Well, along the back of Primrose Farm is here some creek. And this gentleman, he's a friend of the Nature Center. He grew up in this area. He now lives in Montana, but he comes back in the wintertime because his work out there is seasonal. And he was walking up there by the creek, and he saw some activity. And he took a couple steps closer, and he saw not one but two otters. One dove in, hoisted a fish up onto the ice shelf, and they were going to start to eat it. And he got so excited. He's like, "Oh, I gotta get it." And getting his camera out of his coat, he disturbed them, and all he had was a picture of the fish on the ice. But everything he described, and the size too, he said these were not named. He said these animals they had to be 3 feet long, hefty, chunky animals. So I again, no photographic evidence, but I have every reason to believe what he said. This is over at James Page Phillips State Park. This was the following year. This is the bridge that goes over Rooster Creek. Walk the trails over there. That's the foot of my friend Sheila, who is a veterinarian and also a wildlife photographer. This is much too large to be the tracks of a mink. She actually heard the splash of this creature when she was approaching the bridge. She didn't see it, she heard it. Missed it by that much. But there's also been stories of, you mentioned Jessie DeMartini. She used to work at the Forest Preserve District in Page County. There were not one but 2 otters that were hit by a car on Sturgeon. So consider this another activity for these animals that they might show up again soon. And here we have the Fox River in lovely downtown St. Charles. Now this report, and look real hard. You're not going to see the others because this is another one where there was no photographic evidence, but the man who told me the story was Chris Anker, who is now leading the Urban River Otter Research Project. He and his wife were in downtown St. Charles last summer. And if you've been in any of our river downtowns, where the fishermen hang out below the dams. In fact, a lot of them say, "Oh, that's where the best fishing is. We can't get rid of the dams." But that's another time. So these guys are fishing down there. Well, on one of the rocks was an otter eating a fish. Downtown St. Charles. And it was identified by one of our area's most eminent wildlife biologists. Shortly after that, I'm a member of the St. Charles Natural Resources Commission, and I was talking to one of our members who lives over on the east side of town. Last summer we had some pretty hot spells, and she and her husband got in the habit of walking at night. Well, without me telling her the story that Chris had shared, I said, I think I saw an otter by the pedestrian bridge. And it was at night, but it was on the rocks. She said it was too big to be a mink. She said it had to be, she held her arms up to it, this big. It was eating a fish on those rocks, right by the pedestrian bridge. by the old cable piano factory. So, the photographic evidence isn't there, but when you hear these stories now, Rob and I, we were talking, some people, they say they've seen an otter. I said, really? Is it an otter? You think it could have been a muskrat or a beaver? Oh, yeah, whatever. To them, a thing with fur in the water, it could be any of those things. So, but when people, there was a woman who talked about seeing a river otter, and she used that term too. That's another clue if someone knows the terminology. She actually used to live out west and was quite familiar with river otters. She swears that she saw one on the Great Western Trail, where there's a little stream and a marshy area. So there's a lot of people that say they think they've seen otters, but it really doesn't. Some of the things they say don't really check out or add up to be an otter, and then you find out there's a lot of confusion in the public's mind about what is actually an otter. But I really feel that they're out there, and so much so, it's not just me saying this. They now have their own project. This is the same group that is doing the urban coyote research project. This is Stan Garrett. This is Chris Anker. In fact, this Facebook page, if you want to go to the Urban River Otter Research Project, it actually takes you to the Urban Coyote Research Project. They haven't established the otter pages on it, but it's the same group of researchers approaching using the same methodology, some of the same methodologies to determine just where these guys are at and where they're going to. So there's a lot of text, but this was the first one that was documented in Cook County. This was in 2015, and they were able to get a collar on him, and they followed him around. He was at the Sand Ridge Forest Preserve, and he lived there until 2016 when he went into the Little Calumet, which took him to a forest preserve called Whistling Woods. And then he traveled 15 miles west along the Palisade Channel to the Des Plaines River. And then, the way these things do, his transmitter battery died, and they lost track of it. But so this was the first one to be documented to this extent as part of this project. This was the second one, and this was a lot closer to home. This was up at Crabtree, up in South Barrington. This is a female. And her battery lasted for 7 months, and they were able to track her there. They actually have quite a bit. If you go to that Facebook page, you can see several photos of the little family that lived at Crabtree for 7 months. I can't tell you today's status on them, but they did seem like they were getting ready to disperse. What we're looking at here, this is the way the Urban River Otter Project works is they have camera traps all over the place trying to document where these animals are active. They use what they know about river otter habits combined with signs that they're able to see both in the summer and in the winter, and they set these cameras up. This one was in southwestern Cook County. This was also in that same area. The caption says they are investigating a latrine mound. That's one of the signs of these animals. Raccoons use make latrines, and it's kind of it's a place to make a deposit, but it's also a place to get information. River otters do that same thing. They create an area, a communal area where they can go and get some information about other animals that are nearby. They'll actually sometimes build up a mound that they can use to leave those messages. Now, when we talk about otter sign, I mentioned earlier, a big part of their diet is fish, and now that our waters are cleaner, we've got a much more diverse fish population. We do have a lot of carp, and they do seem to feed on them. Otter scat is pretty distinctive. Although older otter scat and older raccoon scat, depending on what the raccoons have been eating, they can cause some confusion. I was actually out behind Primrose Farm this summer near where that gentleman had seen the otters on the ice shelf. I thought I found an otter skin. I was so excited. It was older, I was taking pictures of it, and I was starting to poke around, and I realized it wasn't fish scales. It was hulls of corn from the previous harvest, but it had crumbled away in such a way that it looked like scales. This is something though. If you find scat within, they're highly aquatic. If they're in an area, they may go as far as 10 to 15 meters away from water. So if you're finding scat full of scales within that range, close to the water, it could be that you found otter scat. If you're finding fish remnants nearby, this is a catfish, here, what's left of one. Could be that you found some evidence of otter feeding activity. The problem with this sort of evidence, though, is that there's other animals that are activity. So the coyotes sometimes come in and clean it up before it gets documented. But it is out there, and hopefully now we're all learning about what we need to look for. This is another aspect. This is the community science aspect of the Urban River Otter Project. These are reports that people have sent in from their own travels around the area. You can see we've got one there by Elgin. That would be in our Fox watershed. We've got a few a little bit farther up, but there's a lot that are concentrated more in towards Cook County and the Chicago River, Lake Michigan. Now, how do you know you're looking at an otter? Let's start with someone who knows it. Let's start with beavers. A beaver that's chewing on a stick in the shallows, you're not going to mistake that for an otter. But, swimming in the water, they can be a little bit more difficult to discern. Now, beavers, they have a big blocky head. They do not, they propel themselves with webbed feet. So as they're chugging along, you're not going to see swirls behind them, as you would say a muskrat. But they will move. And have you ever disturbed a beaver in the water? You get the splash. That's another thing. Beavers do that. They've got the tail that is perfect for doing that. Otters might give a little flip, but you won't get that loud splash like you do with a beaver. Let's take a look. These are some Fox River watershed beavers. This is actually over at Delmar Woods.
Is this from a trail cam?
This is from a trail cam, yeah.
When you observe it.
Yeah, this was over at Delmar Woods about a year and a half ago. April of last year. We were seeing lots of beaver activity there. And there's a family. They raised hello. But this is an animal. They will outweigh a full-grown beaver. Usually weighs more than an otter. 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pounds. They are big animals. And again, the big broad head is a giveaway when you see them in the water. If you're around lots of beaver sign, if you're aware, they don't build dams on the river. It's too big. This is a dam actually over on Otter Creek, at Otter Creek Bend. But that's a very obvious sign that you're in beaver territory. This pile here in the foreground, this is a lodge that had been inhabited by the beaver we saw in the trail cam. We had they were actually doing quite well at this lodge. Delmar Woods Park is over on the east side of St. Charles, and it consists of several ponds that were created by human-built dams. And the beavers chose the northernmost of those ponds, which really doesn't get much, it's not, we haven't improved the trail system in that part of the park, so we don't get, there's casual visitors that walk through there, but we don't do any programming or anything like that. Well, they built a bona fide lodge. They built a dam using there's a broken down wooden bridge from the Collins family who had owned that property. The beavers built mud up to the bottom beams of that bridge, and just living like beavers do in a quiet back water pond. Well, this being Park District land, our risk management agency said, you own this land now, that bridge isn't safe, you have to take it out. So in taking the bridge out, we took the dam out, and the water level dropped, and the beavers moved out. Because an entrance to a beaver lodge is always under the water, which helps keep the predators down. So, lodge is still there, the beavers are not. They have moved to the front part of the park. If you ever get a chance to walk over there, it's a neat little park. It's a community park, but it has a large portion of natural area. And we've so far been able to let the beavers do their thing there. We haven't had resident complaints. And they've dammed up some areas. They've taken some trees down, but they weren't trees that we used to take. We need to take some of those maple saplings down there. So they seem to be doing well. The reason that we're talking so much about beavers is bank dens. Whether it's a lodge that's above ground or a bank den that's in the side of a water body. In fact, this is actually down just south of Red Oak Nature Center, if you're familiar with that, in north of Aurora. This is, I would say, maybe 100 yards or so south of the little cave that's at Red Oak. Otters, they have a commensal relationship with beavers. The otters can actually benefit from being in the presence of beavers, using those lodges for shelter in the wintertime. Beavers don't get much out of it, but it's something. If you're seeing signs of beavers, you might want to be on the lookout for signs of otters too. Now, muskrats, there's, other than possibly preying on a baby muskrat, the otter and muskrat relationships haven't really been fleshed out. I wanted to show you though. This is actually this is not here. This is Northside Park in Wheaton, which is the lagoon in that park was made by damming up what's further downstream called Winfield Creek. I used to spend a lot of time at this park, and you can hear me crunching through the early spring vegetation there. See this little creature? Oh, stuck down. Swimming, swimming, swimming. Oh, where's it headed? It's headed for the storm drain. Gotta look really fast. Right? Yeah. You see that? That was the flattened triangular cross-section rat-like tail of a muskrat. But if we go back just a little bit, you see, muskrats keep a low profile in the water, and then they use that tail for propulsion. So here it is, it's swimming along. It always pays to look twice and maybe 3 times, and if you got binoculars, even better, because there's actually beaver activity here at Northside Park too. But muskrats have a pretty easy time fitting through the grates of these drains. Across the way, there were muskrat dens in the other retention pond by the parking lot. These guys, well, if I could go on just a brief tangent, storm drains, they're little highways for all sorts of creatures. Raccoons, muskrats, sometimes beavers. We actually had a beaver pop up over on the east side in Fox Chase, the subdivision there, and it dammed up the storm drain there and was making itself at home until it ate too much of the landscaping. But yeah, And muskrats are, they're pretty ubiquitous. They've taken advantage of retention ponds that have been built. They will sometimes create those distinctive huts. You notice here, no huts. This is where we're looking at muskrats that have created bank pens. These huts or lodges, just like the beaver lodges, they have an underwater entrance. And again, it hasn't been documented yet, but it could be that otters will use these lodges the same way they use the beaver lodges. Getting up and out of trouble. Muskrats and mussels. You guys see this? This is an animal that's largely regarded as being an herbivore, but Jesse and I go out on a lot of mussel rambles, and these guys can't resist freshwater mussels. So if you're in an area and you see a hidden pile, I know for a long time I always thought it was raccoons that have been feeding on mussels, but it turns out it's usually muskrats. They open the mussels up, feed on the inside. So they're mostly herbivores, but they have a taste. So if you see a big pile of mussels on the side of a waterway, muskrats are nearby. It could be that we've got otters in that area too. Otter scat. It's usually prominently displayed on rocks that are sticking up out of the water, logs that are sticking up out of the water. This one was a little bit dry, but more often than not, it has kind of a pinkish mauvish cast to it. So you can be aware of the activity, even if you're not seeing any signs at all. This picture was taken in the winter, but there was a dried muskrat scat. This was over at Beaver Oaks, near where they took the dam out there. I'm kind of disconnected. So, and then this, I wonder if we'll get to the point where we see this with otters. In the springtime, especially when the muskrats are dispersing, is when last year's young are leaving to make way for this year's young. They do make use of those storm drains, and they end up in weird places. This was on 6th Street here in St. Charles. So pretty far away from the river, 6 blocks west of the river. Weirdest one I ever saw, I was walking in the St. Patrick's Day parade a couple years ago. There were 2 flat muskrats right in front of the big hotel on Main Street. So they do get around. If they're using them, we can pet the channel available to otters as well. Now, mink, when we talk about relationships, taxonomy, mink of all these animals are the ones that are most closely related to the otter. These are also members of the weasel family, as are otters. A lot of similarities in the shape of the body, but the big difference is the size. This was a mink that met its end right out here on Beckler. But they are pretty aquatic in their habits as well. Here is here's a little mink. Looks an awful lot like a little muskrat, doesn't it? It wasn't until we put the binoculars on that we saw it was a mink that was crossing. This was in North Aurora. Mink in a retention pond. Someone just a few weeks ago, I was over at Piercing Creek Fen, and there was one on the side of the Fox River. It scared it. The friends that I was with, and it dove in, and it swam out. And when I wasn't able to get my camera out, mink are, we don't tend to think of them as being common, but they really are. They just really good at remaining elusive and out of sight. One kind of a cool thing about mink, they more often than not, they've got some white on them. This individual here just had a tiny little white spot on its chin, but biologists who study mink will be able oftentimes to identify individuals by where the white is, anywhere from the chin all the way down the belly, or portions that. You know, otters are widely recognized as animals that like to play, they like to slide. Well, mink do too. So, you see a narrow slide? And by narrow, we're talking about maybe 4 inches or so. Probably makes like, if we're seeing slides of 6 or 8 inches wide, then we're looking at otter slides. Usually, sometimes you can see this in mud. We don't really have the sort of topography where there's long stretches of mud that's on a hill, but in the wintertime, looking for slides like this can be a good way to determine mink or otter. These are just pictures people have sent me when they've been completely surprised at seeing mink in this area. Here's some mink scat. So you talk about the signs. The otter scat tends to have a lot of fish scales in it. Now, mink are predators too, but their prey oftentimes, they get a lot of crayfish in this area. Crayfish, frogs is also a big part of their diet. Even in the wintertime, they can excavate when frogs are hibernating. So they're active year round, and they will though sometimes vary. That picture in the middle or bottom, that is that the frog one? I can't remember if that's a frog or a crayfish, but people who live along the river, they would be so surprised to see something bounding through their yard with prey in their mouths. There's a gentleman in Geneva who had a family of mink in his yard, and they prepared his chipmunk that he was having. So they can be handy to have around. Now, so I live here in town. I live on 7th Street, so that's 7 blocks west of the river. And last fall, I was heading to work, and what do I see dead in the road? What a mink. All right, mink, aquatic, far away, and so I'm thinking, all right, where's the storm drains? But more, so, you know, what brought it out here, and what was the attraction? Why did it want to leave the river? And I started thinking about the neighborhood. Backyard chickens are drawing our mink away from the water. So, yeah, woman off of Prairie Street lost several of her hens to make got a taste for chicken. So, just by putting these out there, just so you're aware, the mink and the otter, they're similar, but the otter is going to be much larger. Would an otter raid a chicken? Probably. A mink, absolutely. So with that, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm a believer. I hope you are too. Does anybody have any questions?
What's an average otter weigh?
What's an average otter weigh? I want to say about 30 pounds. So yeah, they're muscular and pretty compact. Average length is about 3 feet. So if we compose this over that, quite a bit larger. But they still have that bound. I was coming back from a program a couple summers ago, pulling up here to the front door of Hickory Knolls, and the mink popped out of the retention pond and across the driveway. That loping, sort of sinuous move that weasels are known for. Yes?
Is there a season you're most likely to see otters, or like a month, or?
You know, I would vote for summer, just because that's when aside from the gentleman who saw the one on the ice shelf, all the reports that people have shared with me have been in the summer, but they're active year round. So if the habitat is good, if they found what they need, they could be there too. And if you're, I don't know how many of you do Facebook, I personally would rather not, but I have to, job, that Urban Otter Research Project Facebook page, they're it's a nice mix of, you know, fun memes and then also reports from the research that we get. Is it?
With this, there's a pretty big jump in otter population from I think around 1990 on.
Yeah.
Were there implications that people see effect on other creatures in the
In
environment?
the
because of
area? Not that was reported. Where, in areas where otter have been more stable for a longer period of time, say in the south, I know there were problems with otters getting into commercial fishery places, where they were raising, you know, bait fish outside, catfish farms and things like that. But haven't had that incident.
Except chickens.
Well, chickens, yeah. Right. Well,
And I didn't necessarily mean negative either. I mean, there could have been
Oh,
positive things.
just,
that I'm just curious.
in terms of, you know, controlling other things
Yeah.
that, not that's been documented. There were some reports, and I probably should have put a couple of them in this talk. Otters chasing children out west. Who knows, maybe they deserve it, I don't know. But, yeah, the negative aspects have not been well documented. They're still in the kind of glory phase of the population are rising, and people are just eager to see them. Yeah.
So I still think I saw otters about 30 years ago on First Creek,
Mm-hmm.
which supposedly they weren't there. But, and it's interesting you talk about the slide, because my memory is that this was a pretty big slide that were going up and down into the creek.
Uh-huh.
Has anyone ever talked to any of the trappers from the old days on First Creek? Do you know of?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, I'm gonna have to talk to somebody I know that might be able to answer.
Yeah.
Because there's a pretty big stretch of wild First Creek from our neighborhood all the way through.
Heading towards the river or heading?
Well, behind Wild Rose, but then there's a pretty big stretch all the way west that's
Mhm.
pretty undeveloped and meandering. And in fact, well, they did see one up at Primrose
Yeah.
once upon a time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I would love to find out more. Well, and you know, during some of the restoration work at Norris Woods, we found some little lake boat traps that was done about otters.
Well, I know there was trapping done at First Creek back then. I mean, we actually found traps a while back.
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. I'd love to talk to them. Nancy?
What's the average litter?
2.
Not bad.
Yeah. They, seem to, you know, be doing fine with, reproducing. One male can have more than one female, and the males, it's kind of interesting when they form groups. A lot of times it's the guys that buddy up, you know, oftentimes you hear about, well, like the cougar that was hit by the car down in 88. More often than not, when you have a lone animal like that, it's gonna be a male that's dispersing male otters. They can stay solitary or they can buddy up. But the female, when it comes time to raise the young, and 2 is average, 2 to 4 though, is how big the litters can be depending on research. She might have a sister or a female helper, but the males don't keep the rearing of female.
So they don't band together?
No, the males and females, no, they kind of keep their separate ways.
What's their lifespan?
I'm not sure. I want to say 7 to 10, but that's a figure we apply to a lot of animals. Anybody else know? But the thing with the research project that's going on, the otters are surviving, it's the transmitters that are dying. But, yeah, the camera traps that they set up have really been integral in getting images in areas. And they make educated guesses that this looks like good otter habitat, let's see what we see. And it's been paid off. Anybody else?
So we don't have any documented, like, you said somebody tried to take a picture, but.
Yeah,
went back
the
on their
pictures,
guys'
yeah, as far as,
Primrose, but we
right.
haven't- in Keene County, we don't have any actual, like,
No,
photos
other
or trail
than,
cam stuff
other
yet.
than, yeah, Chris, yeah, so I'd say, no, anybody's got water property, or you walk down the street, and Nancy, we were just talking about
Wow,
trail
you got
cams. Yeah, who knows what we might. Be great to, then we can, have our own little pin on the
So
urban
my
otter
neighbors
research
were
map.
crazy after all. I just figured they were kooky when they were saying, everybody says they see an otter,
Yeah,
but now you're saying if you find like the biggest mink we've ever seen,
yeah.
you
Now,
really actually.
with that said, Rob, we do have the biggest mink that someone ever saw. They brought it to us. It's in the freezer downstairs. She swears up and down that it's otter, and it's a beaver. I mean, it's
It's
a
a
mink.
mink.
It's a, yeah, it's got the white on the chin, and it's just, it's not big enough. It's big, but it's fat, but it wasn't, it's not. But we just agreed to disagree. And I'd be glad to get it out.
I'm wondering how much freezer space you have down there. I feel like I've heard you mention things. in
The freezer, yeah. Well, you know, I hurt myself sometimes reaching in there because there would be a talon or something that's poked out of a bag.
Are you going to use more money for more freezers?
We could probably hold, yeah. Well, we've got two of them now. We've got the one downstairs. But we did actually make a major donation to the Field Museum for their mammal lab. We sent a badger. You know how much freezer space a badger takes up?
No, I don't.
But, yeah, you know, that's the thing with the nature center, people bring us stuff. And, you know, we put it on our permit, and then sometimes we end up using it, sometimes we end up carrying it.
Do you need more mink?
We actually are good.
Our freezers
Well,
are
there's
full.
roadkill went over
Yeah.
along Person Creek Path.
Yeah.
I've seen several of them.
Yeah, well, and yeah, like this one was just right over here by the judicial center. A couple years ago. So, if you find an otter, we'll talk. How's that sound?
Send your pictures. All right, well,
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
Pam.